I was in the second grade when my mom first brought up the possibility of my joining an international school. I didn't really know what the difference was, but I was very much intimidated, mainly by the part that I did understand. So everyone speaks English, like all the time. Of course, now I understand that's not necessarily true, but as an 8 years old public school kid, it was shocking, to say the least. Sure, I had studied English in kindergarten, but never in an actual immersive international environment. When I came to BASIS, the first few days were very tough, and I constantly felt like an outsider. My peers and I shared the same skin color, the same clothes, same hair, but we did not grow up in the same culture, speaking the same languages. But gradually, this period passed, and I adjusted. Now, after 5 years here, BASIS honestly feels like a second home, and the time during which I barely spoke English remains nothing more than a distant childhood memory. The story could have ended here, but is a mere language barrier the only difference between the Chinese and international school system? Even in the second grade, my path seemed clear. Spend 12 years studying so I can spend another couple in a good university, and then get a good job, and then form a good family. Education was never an end unto itself. It was a tool, and not even necessarily a helpful one. It was a barrier and benchmark. Luckily, my mom wanted something different for her children than a test and prescribed future. She wanted us to learn out of our own curiosity and creativity, to pursue our passions, to become what we wish to be. And the international educational system has proven to be the door of opportunities she hoped for. Public schools barely have any activities. International schools strive to keep the classroom fun and engaging. Public schools minimize student discussions. International schools encourage interactive learning over lectures. Public schools makes it clear what student needs to know. International schools simply teach kids how to learn independently. In America, schools pride themselves for using the Harkness table, for which classes consist mainly of student idea sharing with minimal teacher interference. Traditionally, in China, teachers give long lectures and students take notes, barely being provided with a chance to share their own opinion. In America, the ideal student is eloquent and proactive. In China, attentive and obedient. Having experienced both learning environments, I know these comparisons seem intuitive, and I'm sure many of you agree and can confirm. But what is the true difference that these structural disparities creates in us as students? When attending summer camp in the United States, I have quite often found myself amongst a group of Asian students who didn't participate unless called upon, who deferred to others, and who refused to assert themselves. Even in BASIS, the most active contributors to the classroom tend to be the ones most immersed in and influenced by Western culture. Why is that? Well, some studies have boiled down Asian students' quietness to language barriers, cultural differences, or as a strategy of maintaining a social reputation, or as we simply say in Chinglish, it's saving face. All of that is undeniably true and certainly plays a part. But I don't think it completely answers the question. I believe the true difference here is of that between Western extroversion and Eastern introversion. Introversion refers to the personality shared by those with a preference for a quiet, minimally stimulating environment. According to Susan Cain, author of the book Quiet, introverts are more sensitive or reactive to higher levels of stimuli, while extroverts are low reactive, which is why they tend to seek out new experiences. Research hasn't fully established the science behind it all, but we know that personality types are shaped by both nature and nurture, so basically our genes and our upbringing. You may think that introversion is simply shyness. Shyness can be understood as a fear of social judgment. There's always this very common but false association between the two. As Kane points out, whereas shyness is inherently uncomfortable, introversion is not. For example, I am very introverted, but right now giving a speech, I can't exactly afford to be too shy. So, in fact, in the Journal of Research and Personality, psychologist Robert McCrae published a personality roadmap. The results are quite clear. The West is heavily extroverted, and the East introverted. According to Kane, according to Kane, Chinese high schoolers tell researchers that they prefer friends who are honest and hardworking, humble and altruistic, while American high schoolers seek out the cheerful, the enthusiastic, and the sociable. Another study she cited comparing Asian and Caucasian Americans found that Asian participants did better on solving reasoning problems quietly, while Caucasian participants performed well when vocalizing their problem solving. This is true in history as well. As Lao Tzu illustrates it in 600 BCE, he stated that those who speak do not know, and those who know do not speak. In Chinese, 知者不言，言者不知. In contrast, according to Thomas Mann in 1924, speech is civilization in itself. It is silence which isolates. You can see where I'm getting at, right? In Greco-Roman society, students are heavily trained in oratory, which plays a crucial role in politics. In ancient China, scholars endeavor to pass the civil service exam, which does not include a speech and debate portion. Even as a nation, China has always acted more introvertedly. While the West explored and conquered new lands, contemporary China under the Ming and later Qing dynasty chose the closer borders, despite originally being more technologically superior. So in that closure, we can really see any other stereotypically introverted kid who, sits in a room all day and work on their tech obsession. So all this is to say, introversion is deeply rooted in both Eastern genetics and culture, with the alternative being true for the West. So what does it all mean? Let's return to the classroom. I have lauded the Western culture introduced by international schools. But is it really better? A school system based on the culture that promotes extroversion over introversion? Or is it just a different side of the coin? So Chinese public schools supposedly stifle curiosity through testing and lectures. But in trading that for international schools, what is lost? Susan Cain coins the term the extrovert ideal. In the 19th century West, the rise of industrial America caused a shift from what is known as a culture of character to a culture of personality. The ideal self went from being moral and honorable to eloquent and energetic. Inner virtue gave way to outer charm, contemplation to action, substance to style, morals to magnetism. In this system, introversion is viewed as a flaw in personality, an unfair disadvantage, an obstacle to overcome. Classrooms and workplaces now orbit around the gregarious and charismatic and favors the good speaker over the good thinker. We now judge people by their ability and willingness to speak, not what they're actually saying. Introverts are forced to overstimulate ourselves just to fit in. We are conditioned to believe that our quietness is a fault, that we need to act more extroverted, and that we are in fact inferior. The truth is, as Cain points out, data suggests that the elites in any given field, artists, athletes, exceptional earners, spend more time on independent practice rather than group work, because solitude alone allows for intense concentration, self-generated motivation, and personal improvement. Introverts are uniquely equipped for success, yet society's current reliance on group work and collective thinking teach us instead to celebrate the extroverts, because they talk loud and more often. Introverts are not inferior, and they need to stop being treated as such. In fact, I think introversion is precisely associated with shyness because, under the oppression of such a system, with no opportunity to express themselves, introverts cannot help but feel unsure and fear being judged, the precise definition of shyness. So today, I've shared my story, not for myself. I don't like giving speeches, but so that you can take away from here the knowledge of introverts' power and society's negligence of it. Indeed, the educational system is merely its most fundamental reflection, and growing up international in a Chinese environment, the perfect illustration of it. Kane compares introverts today to women at the dawn of the feminist movement, second-class citizens with gigantic amounts of untapped talent. To my fellow introverts, whether you understood yourself to be one before the speech or not, be proud of yourself and be who you are comfortable being. To the extroverts, I don't ask for much, but please be aware of the privilege you have and try to avoid causing discomfort to those around you. And finally, to the educators of this school, I understand the opportunities we share here are unique to anything we can ask for in the public school, and we cherish them, but I hope them only to be more affirming. The world is diverse in many ways, and the first step is always to understand and embrace it. Then I hope we can have real change. Thank you.